What kind of people leave a young woman to die in the snow and sleep peacefully that same night? That was the question burning in the cold wind as Anna Caldwell lay half buried in the white frost, her body shaking, her breath fading, and her hope almost gone. The sky above her was gray and heavy. Snow fell in slow, drifting flakes that landed on her torn dress and frozen hands. Her lips were blue, her face pale, and her body barely warm. She tried to move her fingers, but they didn't answer. She tried to speak, but her voice was gone. She could feel life slipping away one heartbeat at a time. Not long ago, she had lived in a warm farmhouse with her husband and baby boy. She remembered laughter, the smell of bread baking, and the soft sound of her child breathing at night. But those memories felt like they belonged to another woman. A different life. One that had been stolen from her. A sickness had taken her son. Raiders had burned her home. Her husband had been killed during a fight with another settler on the long road west. After that, the settlers traveling with her began to look at her with cold eyes. They murmured that she carried bad luck. That trouble followed her like a shadow. One brutal morning, as the wagon train crossed a frozen river, the men made their choice. They pushed her off the wagon. No goodbye. No mercy. "She'll slow us down," one of them said. "She's already lost everything." Then they rode away, leaving her standing in the wind. She tried to walk, but the cold was too strong and her strength too thin. Hours later, she fell. The snow swallowed her, and she stopped fighting. She thought that was the end, but then she heard something. A sound too steady to be the wind. Footsteps crushing snow. Her eyes opened a little, just enough to see a shadow moving through the storm. At first she thought it was a spirit. But then the figure stepped closer. A man. Tall, wrapped in leather and fur, with long black hair blowing behind him. His face was calm, but his dark eyes were sharp and alert. He looked like he had walked out of the earth itself. A Cheyenne warrior. A lone rider. He knelt beside her and placed a warm hand against her cheek. His touch felt like fire on ice. She tried to speak, but no sound came. She looked into his eyes, unsure if he would save her or leave her just like the others had. He lifted her gently, as if she weighed no more than a child. She felt herself falling against a warm buffalo blanket he wrapped around her. Her head rested against his chest, and for the first time in days she felt something other than fear. Safety. He carried her through the storm without saying a word. The snow whipped around them. The wind howled like a wild animal, and the world outside grew darker. But the warrior kept walking, strong and sure, like nothing on earth could stop him. His name was Tahu, though she would not learn that until later. His shelter was hidden deep inside a forest near a frozen river. A small lodge made of wood and stone, kept warm by a steady fire. He laid her near the flames and wrapped more hides around her shivering body. Her skin burned and ached as warmth returned, but she did not complain. She couldn't. Tahu filled a bowl with warm water and pressed it to her lips. She drank small sips until her throat worked again. He checked her arms and legs, treating the frostbite with herbs. His hands were gentle but sure. He didn't ask questions. He didn't judge. He simply worked to keep her alive. For 2 days she drifted in and out of sleep. Sometimes she heard him sharpening a blade. Sometimes she heard him whisper to the fire in his own language. Sometimes she woke to find him watching her with calm eyes, making sure she was still breathing. When she finally opened her eyes fully, Tahu sat beside her. The firelight glowed across his strong features. His face had the quiet of a man who had seen too much pain but learned to carry it. "You were in the snow," he said softly. His voice was deep, steady. "I brought you here." Anna's lips trembled. "Why?" The words scraped out like a weak breath. He paused before answering. "You were dying." That was all he said, but his eyes spoke more. He had not saved her by chance. Something had pushed him to that moment, something he did not explain. As she rested, Anna noticed scars across his arms and a sadness in his eyes that matched her own. He was a man who carried his own ghosts, a man who lived alone, far from any tribe or town. Outside, snow fell again, soft and quiet. But inside the lodge, A fragile peace grew between two strangers who had both been broken by the world. Yet neither of them knew a dark shadow had followed them through the forest. Someone had seen Tahu carry her away, someone who wanted her found. And soon, trouble would come knocking. Anna grew stronger each day, but with every hour that passed, Tahu became more watchful. He listened to the wind, he studied the trees, he moved with quiet purpose, like a man expecting danger. Anna noticed, but she didn't ask. Not yet. One cold morning, when the sun was trying to break through the gray sky, she woke to find him saddling two horses outside the lodge. Her body still ached, but she could stand, walk, and speak without pain now. She stepped out into the snow. "Why are you packing?" Tahu didn't look at her as he tightened a strap. "You can't stay here," quote. Her heart dropped. "Did I do something wrong?" He shook his head. "No, but they will come, the ones who left you, the ones who hunt you. They won't want anyone to know what they did." Anna looked at her hands. The bruises, the scars. The cold truth in his words made her stomach twist. "So we run?" she asked. "We go," he said. "There is a safe place. Maybe answers too." She didn't fully understand, but she trusted him more than she trusted anyone in a long time. They rode through thick forests where the cold air bit her cheeks, across frozen rivers where the horses stepped carefully, and through vast plains where wind rushed around them like a living creature. The world felt bigger than ever, and Anna felt small. But Tahu rode beside her always, silent and strong. At night they slept in caves or under rough shelters Tahu built from branches. He taught her how to read tracks, how to make a fire in the snow, and how to tell the difference between wolf cries and wind whistling through the trees. She learned fast. She had to. But danger followed like a shadow. One night, as they rested near a canyon, Anna heard it. Horses in the dark. Loud voices. Men shouting. "Tahu," she whispered, shaking him awake. He listened, eyes narrowing. 5 men, close. Anna's chest tightened. She recognized one of those voices. Eli, her husband's cousin, the man who had pushed her off the wagon. "They're looking for me," she said, fear rising. "They won't find you," Tahu told her, but his jaw tightened. They mounted their horses and rode through the night. The wind cut across their faces, and behind them the shouts grew louder. It was a chase for their lives. They barely escaped when the land split open into a deep ravine. Tahu led the horses across a narrow path carved by nature. The pursuers stopped at the edge, afraid to follow. When they reached a safe clearing, Anna's hands were shaking. "Why do they want me dead?" she asked. Tahu didn't answer right away. Then he said, "You carried a locket when I found you." She froze. "It belonged to my son." "It wasn't just a locket," he said. "Inside was a map." Anna blinked. "A map? What map?" quote. He looked into her eyes. Something hidden, something worth killing for. Her heart pounded. She had never opened the back of the locket. She didn't even know it held anything. "My husband," she whispered. "He changed his name after we married. He said it was for safety, but—" Tahu nodded slowly. "Maybe he hid something more than you knew." The truth shook her. "Why are you helping me, Tahu?" she asked quietly. He stared into the fire that night. "At first I wanted answers. Now I don't know." Something in his voice felt different, heavy, honest. She wanted to ask more, but sleep pulled her under. The next day brought worse trouble. As they approached a small trading post at the edge of a canyon, Tahu went inside to get supplies. Anna waited with the horses, rubbing her cold hands together. Then she heard it. A click. A rifle cocking behind her. She turned slowly. Eli stood there smiling, his eyes cold. Well, he said. "You're harder to kill than I thought." "Eli," she whispered, backing away. 2 more men grabbed her arms. She screamed. Inside the store, Tahu heard it. He burst through the door, knife drawn, eyes blazing. But the men shoved their guns against Anna's head. "Drop it," Eli ordered. Tahu froze. He dropped the knife. They tied him up and dragged both of them into a dark barn. Eli knelt beside Anna, leaning close until she could smell whiskey on his breath. "Your husband stole something," he said. "Something that belonged to the army. A map. Now it's missing. I know you have it." "I don't," she said, shaking. "Oh, but I think you do," he whispered. He stood and slapped the barn door. "We ride at dawn. Dead Horse Ridge. That's where your husband hid the truth." When they were alone, Anna sat on the cold dirt, tied, beside Tahu. Her heart was racing. "Tahu," she whispered, "what is Dead Horse Ridge?" He turned his head slowly, eyes blazing with quiet fire. "The place where men disappear, and the place where your past will find you." Anna swallowed hard. "What do we do?" Tahu looked at her, his voice low and steady. "We survive." Outside, harsh laughter echoed. The horses stomped. Eli prepared for the journey. Inside the barn, fear and anger twisted inside Anna's chest. She leaned closer to Tahu. "Tahu, I'm scared." "I know," he said quietly, "but we will not die here." His eyes were steady even in the dark. Tomorrow, everything would change. Anna barely slept that night. The cold barn air stung her skin, and fear twisted in her gut. Outside, Eli and his men laughed around their fire, drinking and yelling. Every sound made her flinch. Every breath reminded her she might not live to see another sunrise. When morning came, the men yanked her and Tahu outside. The sky was dark, heavy with clouds. The wind felt sharp. They were shoved onto horses with their hands tied. Eli led the way toward Dead Horse Ridge, a place Anna had never heard of until last night. A place that made even Tahu's calm eyes look troubled. The trail was narrow, carved between broken rocks and steep drops. Snow blew sideways, making it hard to see. The horses slipped on the icy ground. Anna kept glancing at Tahu. His hands were tied, his face bruised, but his eyes stayed focused, like he was counting the ground, waiting for something. After hours of riding, they reached a cliffside. Below it stretched a deep canyon full of twisted trees and shadows that moved with the wind. "Right there," Eli said, pointing at a narrow trail leading down. "Your husband came this way once. He brought something with him, something I plan to take back." Anna stared at him. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, but you do," Eli hissed. "He trusted you. He told you things." "He told me nothing," she said, voice trembling. Eli smirked. "Then we'll make you remember." Before she could react, one of Eli's men grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the trail's edge. Anna stumbled, almost slipping. Tahu moved forward, but another man shoved a gun into his ribs. "Touch her and I put a hole through you." The man growled. Anna's chest tightened. She looked at Tahu. He looked back at her, steady, calm, like he had a plan but was waiting for the right moment. Then, everything happened fast. A shout came from the trees. A flash of movement. Arrows flew through the air, hitting the ground near the horses. The animals screamed and reared. Eli cursed and grabbed his rifle. Two masked riders came charging from the woods, firing shots and throwing smoke bombs that exploded in thick clouds. The horses panicked. One reared so high that the rider fell, crashing onto the rocks. Another horse kicked wildly. In the chaos, Anna was thrown sideways. She hit the ground hard, rolling toward the cliff edge. "Anna!" Tahu yelled. He lunged toward her, breaking the rope around his wrists on a sharp rock he had hidden against earlier. He grabbed her, just as her body slid toward the drop. His arms wrapped tight around her, holding her steady. Eli screamed orders as his men scattered, trying to figure out who was attacking them. But the smoke was too thick. Shots fired in every direction. "Now!" Tahu whispered. He pulled Anna to her feet and dragged her toward the trees. They ran as fast as the uneven ground allowed. Gunfire cracked behind them. Snow crunched under their boots. Branches slapped their faces. "Tahu," Anna gasped. "Where are we going?" "Anywhere they are not," he said, gripping her hand. They ran until their lungs burned. When they finally stopped, they hid behind a fallen pine tree. Anna's body shook, not from cold, but from fear. "They'll find us," she whispered. "Not yet," Tahu said. "The smoke bought us time." He turned her face gently with his hand. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, tears building in her eyes. "I thought I was going to fall. I thought that was it." Tahu's thumb brushed away a tear. "You were still here." She stared at him, breath heavy. For a moment, the world felt still, quiet, safe. But it didn't last. A branch cracked behind them. Tahu pushed Anna down as a bullet flew past, hitting the tree trunk. Eli stepped into the clearing, rifle raised, fury blazing in his eyes. "You think you can run from me?" he shouted. Anna's heart thudded painfully. Tahu moved in front of her, ready to fight even without a weapon. Eli aimed right at Tahu's chest. "You should have stayed in the snow," Eli hissed. Anna didn't think. She grabbed a broken branch beside her and lunged forward. As Eli fired, she slammed the branch into his arm. The bullet flew wide. Tahu rushed forward, knocking Eli to the ground. They struggled in the snow, fists and elbows flying. Eli grabbed a knife from his boot and swung. Anna screamed, "Tahu!" Tahu caught Eli's wrist, forcing it away, but the blade cut across his arm. Blood stained the snow. Eli kicked him back and stood over him, raising the knife for the final blow. Anna saw something beside her, a fallen rifle half buried in the snow. Her hands trembled. Her breath shook, but she grabbed it. She stood. "Eli," she said, her voice steady. He turned. She pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the forest. Eli dropped to his knees, shock in his eyes, then fell forward into the snow. Anna dropped the rifle, her whole body shaking. She fell beside Tahu, her hands on his face. "Are you all right? Please tell me you're all right." He breathed hard, wincing from the cut, but he nodded. "You saved me." Quote. She cried, not from fear now, but from everything she had carried for too long. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "You are stronger than you know," he whispered. They stayed like that until the forest grew quiet again. No more gunshots, no more footsteps. Just the wind moving through the trees. When they finally rose, Anna helped Tahu walk back through the forest, leaving the ridge behind them. The world ahead was still uncertain. But one thing had changed. She was no longer alone. And he was no longer a lone warrior. Together they walked toward a new beginning.